this?
Should we talk about fitness today?
Should probably talk about fitness.
All right. You want to lead us in?
That's a good place to start.
Yeah.
What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the Big Freakin Health Coach Podcast. I'm Big Freakin Neil, and I'm joined, as always, of course, where would we be without him?
Well, you'd still be here. It's your house.
My business partner, buddy, brain twin, Health Coach Kane. This would still be my house, but it's more of a home when you're here, buddy.
Oh my God, that was beautiful. Did you just think of that right off the top?
I just thought of that right
Damn.
off the top of my head.
Have you ever thought about writing cards for Hallmark?
I was thinking more like Lifetime movie scripts.
Oh, that's solid too.
I think there's more money in that, maybe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
probably.
There's a lot of soccer moms out there that I think want to hear my material.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, right up your alley.
Right up. That's my demographic for sure. Oh man, what's going on, dude?
Oh,
What's the scoop?
the same old, man. Just training people, changing lives, doing fun stuff.
Getting better every day.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. They get better. I get better.
Heck yeah.
We all get better.
Good deal. That's what it's all about.
Damn straight.
That's life, baby.
How about you?
Oh, on that prep grind pretty hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that why your eyes are a little glassy right now?
That's definitely probably part of it. That's definitely
good.
yeah. It's the lack of carbohydrates. Just always kind of makes you look stoned. Is what I found.
Yep. I think this is the first time in history that I have weighed more than you.
I think so too.
In fact, when we met, you outweighed me by like 90 pounds.
It was a big difference. Yeah. A big weight discrepancy for sure.
Like I was a bit scrawnier,
Uh-huh.
and you were just trying to pack on as
polar
much
bear.
mass as you freaking could.
Polar bear status. Yeah.
Big freaking.
That's where the name came from, man.
Yeah, dude.
Big freaking. I feel like after this show, I'm going to have to do a little bit of growing so I can grow back into my name. It's starting to feel a little dishonest.
You don't want to switch to shredded freaking?
Yeah, well, I could temporarily. I've thought
Lean
about
freaking Neil.
There you go. I've thought about switching my Instagram handle temporarily to like petite freaking Neil or something like that.
I like it.
Just on a temporary basis, of course.
You're streamlined right now. That's all it is.
Exactly. I'm compact.
Yeah.
Compact. Oh man, I could use some caffeine.
Could you?
How about you?
Yeah.
Nice.
Are we awake? I mean, kind of.
I mean, sorta. Depends on your definition.
Okay, what have we here? What you got?
Well, I've got my new gold standard, the only commercial energy drink I can have right now, which is Bang Natural. It's the Mango Bango flavor.
Mango Bango.
And these are really solid, man. I'm working through a case of these all week, and I'm pretty happy with it.
Nice.
Pretty good flavor for being an all-natural, stevia-based type of deal.
Yeah.
What you got there, man?
I went mango too.
Ooh.
You have the Mango Bango from Bang.
Uh-huh.
And I have the Mango-matic from Rain.
Bango versus Bango.
I know.
Or Mango versus Mango, rather.
Sure.
That was my prep brain.
Yeah, there we go.
That was my prep
Sorry,
brain.
that was Prep Neil talking.
That was, yeah. It's sort of...
That's like your Bruce Banner in the back of your head right now.
Yeah, exactly. Let's crack these babies open.
Yeah. Tastes like mango.
Tastes just like mango.
Honestly, usually I'm a big fan of Rain. Not terribly impressed by this one.
Really?
It is just a truckload of caffeine, though. It's like 300 milligrams caffeine.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to do this over the next few hours.
Yeah, you're going to be zipping.
Oh, buddy. I don't know. I'll give it like a 3.8, 3.6. It's still good. It's just not...
For a Rain, that's pretty low.
Yeah. Usually I have them in the mid-4s.
Yeah, easily. Prep scale, we're going for 2.
All right.
Normal person scale, probably like a 3-1.
All right.
Low 3s for sure. Yeah. But
Not
now,
a lot of kick to it, but...
Yeah, it's mild. It's got that slight stevia aftertaste.
That'll bring the rating down real quick.
But right now, just any kind of sweetness is much needed. So
yeah.
I got no complaints.
Nice. What are we talking about today, big guy?
Pulling exercises.
I love those.
I do too. We just covered push a couple weeks back. And the equally, arguably more important opposite to that is pulling exercises.
And pulling's interesting because it's hardly ever... We're talking about upper body pulling. It's hardly ever a primary movement in a lot of strength programs.
Yeah.
Usually that goes to like squat, dead, bench, overhead press.
Yes.
So a lot of your rowing and pull downs and things like that end up being accessory work.
Yes.
But that works okay because these muscles are a much higher percentage of that type 1 muscle fiber, which is endurance stuff.
Yeah.
They recover fairly quickly. So you can use them several days a week in your programming. Should we start with some basic anatomy?
I think so. I think that's a good place to start.
So there's a boatload of stuff in your back that we can talk about. I mean, your shoulder blade alone has 17 muscles that attach to it.
There's a lot going on there.
So we'll go broad strokes.
Yeah.
We'll work with the larger structures.
Yeah.
The important skeletal pieces back there are your shoulder blades and your spine and your rib cage. On top of those, starting from up at the neck in your cervical spine, you have your upper traps, your lower traps too, but that's further down. The levators, which are from the inside of your shoulder blade right up to the base of your skull.
Okay.
And then you move further down and around your shoulder blades, you have the rest of your traps. You have some rhomboids that go between your shoulder blade and your spine and pull your shoulder blades together.
Yep.
And then moving further down in your thoracic spine, you have your lats, which attach all the way up and down your thoracic spine, and then they attach to the front of your humerus, that upper arm bone. So they're actually the largest internal rotator you have. So execution on vertical pulling, the form's very specific to make sure that you don't worsen common postural issues.
Yeah, those are the wings. That's what gives you sort of that V shape, and that's what bodybuilders are typically targeting with their mid or upper back.
When they talk about cobra back, that's the big stuff.
Exactly.
Then your lumbar spine, you have your core musculature, but when it comes to your back, you have spinal erectors that go from your pelvis up through your lumbar spine.
Yeah.
So those are the broad strokes. There are a couple like rotator cuff muscles and things like that also rotate your shoulders back.
Sure.
We could talk for days about those. We're going to stick with the bigger stuff.
Yeah.
And if we do shoulders specifically in an episode later on, we'll dig into that a little bit more.
I think it's better to separate them. Shoulders are the most complicated joint in the human body.
Yes.
And there's a lot going on, so they deserve their own spotlight.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Cool. So that's a really solid overview of the anatomy. What movements specifically do we want to talk about with regards to upper body pulling today?
So we're going to split it into 2 pieces. We're going to start with horizontal pulling, which is, front to back.
Yeah.
And we'll be talking about rows and face pulls specifically for those.
Nice.
There are a lot of variations you can do, but we're going to stick with a couple basics.
Yep, great
and then
combo.
For the vertical pull, we're going to stick with the pull-up motion, which could also be a lat pull-down, but vertical pulling from above your head down to your shoulders is what we're talking about.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, let's start with rows. What are your go-to variations of a row? What are the anatomical implications of a row? And what are people trying to accomplish with a row?
I am a big fan of unilateral rowing. And what that means is rowing one arm at a time rather than using both.
Yeah.
It keeps you from building muscle imbalances, and especially with pulling exercises, you tend to favor your stronger or dominant side a little bit more if you go bilateral with those movements. So I like to do the single arm dumbbell row. You put your knee on a bench, your hand on a bench, your spine's parallel with the floor.
Great choice.
And it's easy to load, it's easy to dump if it gets heavy, and you have a lot of instant feedback for your form.
Yeah. It's one of those, too, where you're so stable and locked into position with the use of the bench especially, that you're able to go really, really heavy in terms of intensity, in terms of loading the muscles, but stay locked in and not have to sacrifice any form. And keep the tension on the right muscle groups. Yeah. It's really great for that.
Well, it's great. You can adjust the width of your leg that's not on the bench so that you can limit rotation in your hips and stuff like that. Like, you can really fire your traps and your rhomboids really, really hard.
Absolutely.
And for the populations I train with, I typically do these as like you pull it up to your armpit. It's definitely an upper back exercise.
Yeah.
There are variations that can be a lot more lat dominant. And
yes.
Like, your bodybuilding populations probably, use those more.
Yes.
But I usually use them on baseball players and people with postural issues and stuff like that. So we keep it pretty strict.
I mean, that's one of the reasons why it's a brilliant exercise, is it's so diverse in what part of your upper back you want to target. Yeah. You can target anything from that upper back rhomboid area all the way down to your lower lats, and it's really the same movement.
Yeah,
it's awesome. It's a great exercise. So that's a solid row. What about a face pull? What is that for people that don't know?
A face pull is, I typically like to do these on cables because then the weight is evenly distributed throughout the movement. You stand facing the cable with a rope attachment on it, arms straight out in front of you at about eye level, and you grab onto the ends of the rope, and then you pull so that your elbows flare out and your shoulder blades come together until your knuckles are at your temples.
Yeah.
So you kind of look like Schwarzenegger doing a double bicep pose at the end.
Yep.
And you should feel it in just about every significant upper back muscle that you have.
Yes.
That's probably arguably the best postural exercise that you can do because it combines that scapular retraction with external rotation. So all those smaller muscles that we're not really diving into today, they get lit up and exercised as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's especially good if you are utilizing your rows primarily for lower lat development, implementing an additional movement like a face pull is super important because that is going to cover all your other bases with all those upper back muscles.
Yeah.
Big time.
And all those are super important for the other primary lifts that you would do. If you have a weak upper back, you can't stabilize your spine during a heavy deadlift.
Correct.
If you have a weak upper back, you can't stabilize your shoulder joints during a heavy bench press.
Correct.
If you have a small upper back, you don't have a shelf to put a bar on for a squat.
Right.
Like, these are all super duper important for many, many reasons in addition to just general postural health.
Yeah. Yeah, I love what you said about the shelf on the squat because that makes a huge difference. Having an actual, having posterior delts to put the bar on. Also, just keeping your upper back tight throughout a squat is very hard if you have weak upper back muscles. Yeah. And same with bench. That has made the biggest difference for my own bench and other powerlifter clients of mine. Just strengthening and stabilizing the upper back muscles helps with that press so much. Even though it seems like it's the opposite, having that base underneath you makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
Huge difference.
Without that, it's kind of like the analogy I use all the time is firing a cannon from a canoe.
Yeah.
Like, you're not on solid ground. You can't produce as much force. You're not as explosive.
Right.
Like, if you can lock down those scaps, your shoulder blades, and push hard, your bench is going to go up significantly.
Absolutely. So that's really good for horizontal pulling. What about the vertical pulling that we just touched on?
Vertical pulling, first of all, I tend to do a little bit less of.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of neutral grip vertical pulling.
Okay.
Because I've found that clients have an easier time feeling their lats engage when they can pull down further to the sides of their head and really squeeze their elbows into their rib cage.
Sure.
That being said, if you feel your lats firing with a flat lat pull, you're good.
Yeah.
If you feel it really well during a pull-up, you're good.
Yeah.
The goal here for me, most of the time, is to make sure that the shoulder blades retract and your shoulders stay rolled back while you do the pull.
Right.
If you don't regulate that, they have a tendency to roll forward and press into the front of that shoulder capsule, which can create a little bit more instability in the front of that shoulder capsule, in addition to the usual rubbing, grinding, bursitis kind of things that lead to irritation and in some cases injury over time. So that's really important. Have a really broad Superman-style chest when you get to the bottom of that pull.
Yeah.
And really feel for those lats.
Yeah, agreed. It's a movement I think that's easier to than say a horizontal pull. With the vertical pull, it's easier to you bring in other muscle groups. It can be really, really bicep heavy.
Pec minor is a big one that can help with those.
Sure. Yeah.
I see a lot of people get on the lat pull down with the palms in grip.
Yeah.
And then when they get to about the top of their head, their shoulders immediately curl in.
Yeah.
And you can see their chest is helping along with that kind of thing.
Absolutely. It turns it into almost like a pull over movement for your pec minor.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. Really interesting. Yeah. So it's sort of easy to cheat with in that regard. So yeah, form becomes a really, really big issue, especially with your scapula, like you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
I also probably implement it less programming wise than a horizontal pull. Less overall implications to posture correction and upper back stability and all the things that we're talking about.
I mean, they are still important.
And they're still important.
That lat tension can help you stabilize during a bench press a bit. It's also a huge spinal stabilizer for your thoracic spine during a deadlift.
Yeah.
So just because we do more horizontal pulling than vertical doesn't mean you should ignore your vertical pulling.
Absolutely not. Yeah, agreed. That brings us to a good point to talk about overall programming structure. So you mentioned earlier that because of the nature of the muscle groups, pulling exercises you can implement multiple times a week. Mm-hmm. What is your personal go-to for clients as far as programming this stuff in?
Depending on how often they're training, I mean, the ratio stays pretty much the same. Yeah. I do twice as much horizontal pulling as they do pushing.
Okay.
And I try to do like a 1-to-1 of their pushing to their vertical pulling.
Okay.
So like if you bench 3 sets, 2 different workouts during the week, you're going to do some kind of horizontal pulling exercise for 6 sets and maybe trade one of them or add one 3-set thing of vertical pulling as well.
Got it.
So the overall ratio of pull to push is like 3-to-1.
Yeah.
But considering most of these people are either throwing athletes or sitting at a computer all day, that's pretty appropriate.
I agree with that for sure. That's a good way to do it too, is to manipulate the total weekly volume. I think a lot of people, when they hear that, they just think frequency. So they think, oh God, that means I gotta work out that means I gotta do pulling exercises 3 days a week and push once a week or something to that effect. But really, as long as you're doubling or tripling the volume that you're doing with these exercises, the result is the same. As long as you're getting double or triple the amount of total work throughout the week than you are with the pushing exercises.
The other point I would make on that is that this is one of those rare instances where I don't include load in the volume.
Yeah.
Because you are not going to face pull any kind of relevant weight.
No.
Pound for pound as you would in a pushing exercise.
Sure.
So if you just do 2 or 3 times as many sets of an equal or greater number of reps, you're probably fine.
Yeah, I agree with that. 100%. Yeah, by nature, those exercises don't require as much load. those muscles don't require as much load. There's smaller muscle groups, specifically your upper back muscles. Yeah. So comparing that to, say, the load of a bench press is just not a fair comparison.
Yeah.
It's not going to be anywhere close. Yeah. What else, man? So that's a pretty good overall rule of thumb pulling to pushing ratio, I think.
Like there are a lot of ways to get that in over the course of the week. So if you only work out twice a week right now, let's say, and you're benching both of those days, you can superset your bench with a bunch of face pulls, and you can do them in a support capacity so that they're not really tiring you out, but they are keeping all those muscles active.
Yeah.
And then you can do a heavier pulling exercise later in your workout.
Yeah.
If you're working out 5 days a week, you can do one set of a pulling exercise every day, or one round, like 3 sets of a pulling exercise every day throughout the week, regardless of whatever the rest of your stuff is, because as a secondary exercise, it's not robbing you of power from anything else.
Sure.
And your recovery is going to be a little swifter than it would be with some of those bigger movements.
Yeah, what I implement for myself a lot on a heavy bench press, especially when I'm on a powerlifting program, I'm doing, 3 to 5 warm-up sets before I'm touching my working weight for the press itself. Mm-hmm. So in between each of those warm-up sets, I will superset some type of face pull.
Yeah.
So I rack up 4 sets of face pulls right there, and then once I get into my working weight of bench press, I can just switch over to straight sets for the press. It also just sort of pushes blood into your upper back and warms up those muscles, so it's going to prime you to stay tight and stable in those muscles on the press.
Yeah.
So I find that it's a really, really solid complement when you're warming that up.
Yeah, that's a very solid point.
What about rep ranges? So what do you usually have clients do for like a row versus a face pull versus a vertical pull?
Depending on context, it'll be anywhere from 8 to 15 reps.
Okay.
So like if it's a single arm dumbbell row on the bench there, I will gladly have somebody do sets of heavy 8s.
Yep.
You get much heavier than that. It's not a 5x5 kind of exercise.
Yeah.
You get more out of it with a little bit more endurance to it. Mm-hmm. That being said, if it's not early in the workout, it's later on in the workout for some reason, and they do 3 sets of 12 or 3 sets of 15, I'm fine with that too.
Yeah.
There's enough endurance muscle fiber in there. For most of those muscle groups, it's about 50-50, type 1 and type 2.
Yeah.
That a 15 rep set, it's not a problem at all.
Absolutely. Now, if I'm having someone utilize a single arm dumbbell row as a primary exercise for like their lats, their lower lat, that's the style that they're using, then I will go up to a heavy 5. That's as heavy as I'll go.
Yeah.
I wouldn't go any lower than 5-6 reps. But then that can range, like you said, all the way up to 12 reps, depending on what we're trying to accomplish with the exercise. And then with a face pull, rep ranges are typically going to be higher.
I do 12 to 20 on a face pull.
Same.
Like something like that.
Yeah.
And then to your point about the lats, for a vertical pull, hell yeah, I'll do short sets on that.
Absolutely.
Those are some big old muscles.
Absolutely.
Like, if you want to go real heavy, you see folks load up for their pull-up with a bunch of plates.
Yeah.
Great, go for it. If you only get 3, that's fantastic. That's a muscle group you can build raw strength with.
That is a really good strength set. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I'm fine with that. You can go anywhere from 3 to 20 and do body weight for an hour and a half. I don't really care. Like, it's all going to be beneficial to that muscle group.
Yes, I agree.
So in addition to movement pattern, I think the back is one of those places where it's beneficial for even non-bodybuilders to split it up into specific muscle stimulation.
Sure. I agree with that. Yeah, I agree with that. It's such a diverse muscle group, and because of that, you can implement so many different varieties of intensities and volume and rep ranges to accomplish various goals. So there's no right or wrong. I think in general, those larger muscles in your back is where you want to build the strength. That's where you want to go a little bit heavier in that 3 to 6 rep range here and there. And then for the smaller muscles in your upper back, more of that higher rep range. There's no real benefit to doing like a 5x5 face pull.
No.
That's not going to accomplish anything for you.
In fact, you're exponentially more likely to get injured doing a really heavy face pull than to actually improve your posture in a significant way.
Right. Absolutely. Cool, man. I think that's a really solid overview for pulling in general. And
there are a lot of ways to do it. If you guys run into any trouble with your pulling exercises, how to program them, which ones to choose. If you have chronic desk posture, internally rotated shoulders, kind of that hunchback posture, hit us up. We'll put you on a little corrective program that'll get you opening up in the chest and firing up in the back and get you all straightened out.
Yeah, happy to help. Absolutely.
All right,
man.
Quick overview. There's plenty of room for specifics. That was, I hope, a really helpful episode for everybody.
Yeah.
I can't stress enough how important your pulling exercises are. So that is Big Freakin' Neil.
That's me.
I'm Health Coach Kane. This was the Big Freakin' Health Coach podcast. And your charge right now is to share this with the 3 people you know with the worst posture.
Perfect.
So,
perfect.
Like, share, review, share with your friends. And we will catch you guys next week for another deeper dive into some movement systems.
Catch you next week.